Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the IFSEC Distributor Network Ask the Experts panel Q&A. Thank you to our panel for joining us. My name's Chris Edwards from CIE Group and also from the free video training channel HowToAV. So we have our cameras here today filming everything. So hopefully David's going to fall off his chair again for us. £250 in the bank straight away. What we really need, apart from our cameras, are some true experts from the security industry. So on today's panel, I've been joined by some of the real experts and the tech brains from some of the UK's leading distributors, all of whom are here at the show today. So I'm going to do some very quick introductions first of all. From Team Green, we've got David Davis. You'll see him in front of the cameras even more than me, good Lord, from DVS. So welcome to David. Thank you for joining us.
It's a privilege to be here.
Kevin Sherwood, also in the green corner as well, colleague and friend of mine from CIE Group. We have Camilla Kirkham, Team Green as well. Everybody's in green so far. Camilla Kirkham, Director of Sales and Security in AV from Nyman's. Carl Spencer, in the yellow corner, Carl. Carl from Aprima, welcome. And then from the blue and green corner, Dan, we have Daniel Frith, Sales Director at DTS Solutions. So thank you all for joining us. We'd really like this to be an interactive forum today. I've got lots of questions that have come in over the last couple of days, but if you've got a question you want to ask the team, we'd love to hear from you. Wave your hands, heckle furiously, and we would love to hear your questions as well. I know there's some hecklers at the back, aren't there? Yeah. David brought his own hecklers. So first up, what I would like to do is really talk about why the distributors have all been invited to the show and how we have moved on the model of the distributor from that box shifting simple model to what we now call a value-added distributor. And I see nodding faces here straight away. We would all now call ourselves a value-added distributor and really talking about what that means and what it means to each of you. So who's going to start about what for you that value-added distributor means? Camilla, you look me straight in the eye. Let's talk about what value-add is and how it's changed what a distributor is for you.
So for us, a value-added distributor is not just about sending kit from one place to another. It's about how we can add value to what your solutions are. So it's about innovation. It's about looking at solutions, finding products to suit those solutions, not just selling a round product in a round hole, make sure it fits properly all the way through. So value-add is from the start of bringing the product in, to selling to the customer, to supporting it to the lifetime of that product and carrying on rolling it for innovation going forward.
Dan, from your point of view, certainly a lot of it is about service-driven distribution now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's some real challenges. I think within technology, it's just a full-time job to keep up with technologies as they come out and everything else like that. So I think at all levels within distribution, what we really need to be doing is acting as the people that go out to these different areas, to the different manufacturers and create the solutions that the end users ultimately need via the channel. So, yeah.
Carl, David, anything to add? Let's keep the cameraman really, really busy by flipping it over.
Me?
You go.
Oh, okay, then thanks, Carl. No rivalry at all, Steve. So from our side, DVS have always been very key on the value add as we're talking about, whether that's post-sale. But we're also, in that value add, we're also very key on bringing our ecosystem together. So it's not just about the service we offer to our customers, pre and post sales and the pre-configuration and technical support system design elements, but also how all these technologies can be deployed in a converged manner as a one-stop solution effectively.
Carl?
Yeah, I think everyone sat here, we're all in the same boat. The world has changed, doesn't it? Everything's instant, Netflix over Blockbuster back in my day, clearly. So we all live in an instant world. So for all of us, I think it's just about saving time and money for people and making our customers' lives more efficient.
And finally, Kevin, I've not forgotten you, but I didn't want to show favouritism. But
None
Kevin,
taken.
Anything to add to that with regard to how value add is really important to the market?
I think, all the comments were in agreement. I think from our perspective as well, and I'm sure from the other guys, we're also managing or helping our installers manage the end client's expectations. There's often a lot of, we can do everything. And once a distributor gets involved of assisting, adding to the design, probably taking away some of the wish list element and making it reality, then that's better for everybody. There isn't then a system sold that doesn't deliver. And I think that's the thing that we're all trying to do now, is to make sure that what the client gets does what it is, but he also understands the limitations, because it's affected by budget and things like that.
And I think from my point of view, which is why you guys are here today, it's such a knowledge base now, the distributor. It's not simply about stock, it's not simply about price, it's about all of that knowledge that all of your teams deliver to those installers as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And talking of which, we've now got a load of questions coming in, so I'm going to start and we'll see who wants to jump in straight away. So with more and more biometric and face recognition technologies being adopted, is the increasing prevalence of AI technology, is it a benefit to security technology, or are we seeing it as a real threat? And how are the manufacturers responding? Who would like to jump in? Question? Carl?
Yeah, I'll have a little pass at this one. So obviously it's been in the news about Chat GPT and people winding back from AI from some of the major tech heads in the world. I think that's a separate thing perhaps from AI in our industry. I think it just goes back to what the application is and does it need AI? If it doesn't, then don't use it, and so all save yourself some money.
I think, yeah, from my perspective, similar to Carl, ChatGPT was one of the points I was going to raise. We've seen how that's accelerated the marketplace out there and how that is really going to revolutionise technology. I think as a technology-based industry, we should adopt this AI technology as much as we can and make it a benefit to our customer and our industry, for sure. Absolutely pro-AI.
Do we think that the end users, that the property managers and security managers concerned about AI though, and what it might develop with regards to face recognition and fake access? Kevin?
Yeah, it is an issue. I mean, certain manufacturers are looking at things like metaverse characters now going into intercoms, because there's a requirement for two-way visual interaction. I totally agree with the other guys on where it's going as far as the AI element of it. It only needs to go so far. If we drive it on to be something that it's not, then we've only got ourselves to look at. So it's got its limitations, and in specific sectors. It's going to be very hard for AI to be accepted, say, within the military market, because of what you're actually protecting. In other industries, maybe the facial element going into the care market is of great benefit to them because of the circumstances. If you're working in dementia care and things of that ilk, temporary visits. So I think it's got to be applied per market sector, really.
I think the challenge is as well, as with most technology, the technology is evolving so much faster than legislation can keep up with it, which is a real challenge for all of us, I'm sure. And it's a real challenge for the installers as well and people that are out actually selling on the ground to know, what am I actually not allowed to sell, but what's going to change in the next 6 months with regards to legislation, or the next year, or the next 3 years? Because this technology is an investment, is an expensive technology investment. If ultimately half of that gets taken away because of legislation, for example, you've done your money, haven't you? That's the problem.
I think there is a huge lack of legislation behind it at the moment. We're really interested to see what comes on board. And thanks for that beautiful segue there, Dan. I'm now going to talk a little bit about Martyn's Law, which is being talked about a lot at the show today and has been talked about at other shows as well. So Martyn's Law is a response to the terrorist attacks in Manchester, and it is going to be new legislation to support security in live events, in public access buildings. So a lot of that is about how you manage people in and out of the building safely. But I did want to ask, and I'm possibly going to come to you, Dan, with regards to live events. Do we think that there is an opportunity for hardware to support some of the legislation behind Martyn's Law?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's lots of stuff in there but there's a lot of indications within Martyn's Law rather than prescriptive, you must do this and you must do that, for better or for worse. It's up really to the end user to decide almost what's reasonable, or I can't remember the phrasing of how it's put through. So there's definitely room for it. It's to what level of investment the end user's organisation is going to make in that technology to justify, for the ends to justify the means, if that makes sense. And again, that's something that really we should all really be knowing about and supporting, and looking at case studies and things like that to provide with the installers to say, this is what worked there, this is what was acceptable there, this is what worked. So there's definitely room for it, but it's finding the square peg for the square hole, if that makes sense.
Camilla, how does a distributor, a value-added distributor, respond to new legislation? Is it in the way that we market our products? Is it in the products that we go out and find in the market?
I think it's sort of a section of both of those. I think we've got to be very important that when we get an opportunity or when someone's asking for advice, that we make sure our solution fits the needs of the client, and that we sell the product that's the right fit. So with any technology, there's always going to be a risk and a bonus, and we have to weigh up those two together to think which is the best one. We're never going to get utopia. We're always going to say technology is always evolving. We always have to stay ahead of the time. So I think it's just never assume anything, always be open, always put everything on the table and make sure you've got all the facts first before you do anything.
And open to any of you. And we're going to talk about chipsets in a minute and how it's affected the market, of course. But I was just wondering, with legislation like this, are we seeing the manufacturers respond to opportunities like this quick enough?
I think, from my perspective, that we're talking of the chipset issue that we've just seen in many industries and many technologies. The manufacturers were forced to go out there and redevelop their systems, redevelop chipsets, go and find alternative sources. And I think that's been a big driving factor in how technology is now introduced to the customer, because they're looking at the future to future-proof these chipsets and the technologies and how that will then influence and affect the market moving forward. So I think it's been largely positive.
Does the chipset shortage continue to affect stock supply from all of your point of view? And has it negatively affected new product development over the last 2-3 years? Who wants to jump in? Kevin?
Yeah, I think it has. We've seen it. We've seen delays in stocks coming to distributors. We've all, I guess, really struggled. It's in different elements and certain suppliers. Some have been okay, some haven't. Some have utilised older chipsets, which are freely available, which they didn't need the newer chips, so they had a better ability to sort of not use the capacity of a lower grade chip. So that's helped. Whether I think it has slowed down development. I mean, certain ones are pushing on with certain elements. We know certainly one manufacturer has said, yeah, we've got 5 new products. They're not going to be launched for 12 months because we placed our orders for the chips and they can't supply for 12 months.
Are we still seeing challenges in stock, anyone? Everybody's going to say no, of course.
I think one of the challenges has been the price increases as well. So certain manufacturers where they've had to go elsewhere for the chipset and they've seen a big increase. Some people are putting surcharges on. I think some manufacturers have managed it better than others. Some foresaw it and were prepared and have bought in advance. So we've seen very much spiky. Some aren't affected at all. Some have been really seriously affected. Some brands we don't actually distribute, we've then been able to support our clients with product that hasn't been affected. So it's been a real mixed bag of what's going on. I personally think it's getting a lot better now. We're not as affected as we were by it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The biggest thing was the price increase, where it hasn't tended to sort itself out yet.
I think the point is, if we've all done our job, we should all have alternatives to offer anyway, which is why we're in distribution. So that's probably where we should have gone with that, I guess.
Dan, I guess that the gestation period of an order is a little bit different to some of the installation products that we're seeing here. Have you been affected, or is it easier to manage?
I think we're all being asked to predict the future in a lot of ways. We're asked to. We might as well go and predict our lottery numbers in terms of some, particularly over the last couple of years, in terms of what's going to come in and everything. And then on top of that, you've got when the order actually marries up with the time that comes in. So you might find that an order comes in and you've been working on it for or the end user's been working on it or the installer's been working on it for 2 years. And then it just comes in, and that's just when there's a problem with stock on that particular brand or that particular model. And yeah, you can find alternatives, but if the end user is invested enough in the specific technology, the specific brand, some of the features that it does, it can be very, very difficult to pivot at a certain point in the sales cycle. So yeah, prediction the future is not easy.
Next question I've got here is for the access control people among us, and it's with regards to contactless technologies. Of course, everything is now moving towards contactless technology, using the smartphone as the key. And it's a simple question, which is the best and why? And is that technology the device key, or is it the wireless technology that's the deciding factor?
I think, it's an interesting one, because for me, mobile technology is something that we're trying to promote to the customer base, and it's a very interesting topic because there's a definite educational piece here, because where people are very au fait using their smartphone, everyone's got a smartphone, right? You're happy to do your banking, your emails, all your personal sensitive information, but there's still a drawback with people accepting to use that as a smart card for access control, right? Yeah. Which is the education piece that we're struggling with to sort of bridge that gap, to bring those two together. For me, mobile technology, I think it's as safe as it can be. There's a lot of investment there. I think that will continue to be invested in because of all the apps like banking, they have to make sure they're secure. So I do believe it's a secure future-proof technology, and it's something that we would love to promote moving forward. But I think there's a big educational gap that we're seeing there.
Yeah, I think
I'll just add to that actually as well. I agree with all Dave's points. I think perhaps when it got launched, there was some early adoption challenges over read speed and stuff like that, and also a sense of you're almost, if you give somebody a credential in the mobile technology, you're asking them to use their own device for a purpose of work. So there's possibly some reticence over that, and what do you have control over, and spying, etc., etc. So I think as we evolve, I think the BYOD market will just get more and more prevalent, and I think certainly when you look at the ROI, there's a compelling case for adopting that.
Yeah.
And Kevin, Camilla, has there been a generation gap with adoption of using the smartphone as
Can I just say, why are they looking at us two, Kevin?
I ain't got a clue. I'm not taking it personally.
So the old people, no, not really.
The old people, thanks for
The old ones in the group.
Yeah, I think it's the adoption is certainly, if you look at some of the rented spaces now with Students' Union, a lot of those want to go down the route of doing it within the mobile credential. I mean, and there's some very big players, you've got your HIDs and people like that who have actually put a lot of time and effort behind mobile credentials. And, if you look at what 2N's done in the way that do their algorithms, there's a lot of work gone into it to make it as secure as possible. And I think if it makes life easier, and it is a certain demographic that has sort of gone, yeah, we like the idea of this, but then the older ones have sort of taken the challenge as well.
You've got a mobile phone now, Kevin?
Yeah, I have, somewhere. I probably left it on the stand somewhere.
Nokia.
I think as well it's about getting the message across of what technology is out there. So from personal experience this time, hotel costs in London are getting very expensive. So we've decided this time to do an Airbnb type arrangement. Now, they could have been really smart and got QR code and face detection, but they haven't. They've chose to give them a key. So we've had to wait for a guy to come and pick the key up, and there's only one key, and all these things that are a problem, and they don't understand that how much cost could be saved by not having to have an agent coming out to let them in. It's a smoother service. So how do we get the message out to the end users that actually technology and Airbnb can help you move things forward? That's the generation type thing. Education is a big thing.
It is. It's back to that education piece over and over again. And again, it's back to that value add. That is now our responsibility to do, I think, rather than the manufacturers, perhaps. I'm going to look at the audience because I feel I've been giving them all of the attention. We will do 5 minutes Q&A at the end. But has anybody got any questions at the moment that they'd like to put to the panel?
So as an end user, where we've got in nuclear, we utilise radios. So mobile phones aren't allowed in any of our facilities. Now, how many of you know of the facility between the radios being integrated with the technology on the access control?
So again, there's lots of different ways to filter and integrate, and finding a central software application that will actually do everything for you and make the most out of it. We do provide multiple different software applications that do offer integration paths with access control, with BMS, with fire alarm panels, with everything else like that. But it's understanding the benefits and limitations of each. I don't know what we've seen so far as radio is concerned recently it's been an increasingly move towards going cellular and leaving the traditional sort of UHF, VHF radio systems behind. But you can now get converged devices that do both. So I'm not sure what exactly the reason would be for not using an Android device with radio built into it, but that is also another possibility of something that you can do.
From a security principle, the Android in most cases is banned, so we can't actually use it.
Okay.
So from that kind of facilities, this is where we're having to approach the manufacturers of the radios and see where we're going on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Any more questions at the moment before we move on to the next one? I'll keep going. And this one's quite surprising, certainly in an IP industry, and everywhere we look, it's still IP. But the question is being asked, is installer adoption of IP systems and relationships between the installer and the IT manager, is it still a challenge? And is it still something that we need to overcome? There's certainly, Camilla and Kevin are nodding furiously here. Who wants to have a go? Kevin, tell us your point of view.
I think it depends. It's the way you approach it. I think what we have learned, and certainly the where we become involved, we have to be involved. Take the RAF side of the basis we've done. We've learned very quickly, you've got to get involved with their body, which is SCIDA. I think if you make the effort to actually interact and integrate with the actual network guys, they're more open to it. If you suddenly try and impose it on them, then the barriers come down. But there is a benefit now, and the cost has come down within networks to build separate networks to do it. But if they're doing it, they want to have control of it. They want to state what the servers are, what the switches are, what standard they want to use. So I would just recommend from the start, get them involved in the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, same thing. It's the fear of the unknown. And I think as long as you're very open and you get all the specifications for how much the network's going to be changed, are you going to affect their network, then that's the biggest thing to come over. But I do think it has improved a lot. I think with anything, as technology changes, everyone's doesn't quite understand what that's going to mean. And there's a lot of fake news out there. And I think when they actually get down and see exactly what's involved, then it's a much more positive experience. But I again totally agree with what Kevin says. You have to involve IT from the beginning. There's less of this, it's mine and that's yours. There's more collaboration, but it's still there.
I think in fairness also, they've become more open. There's not, it's my network, you can't come in it. They've realised that they're going, and if they don't take control of it, their network won't be their network.
Yeah, it's happening, so they need to move with the times.
Yeah.
And Carl, we were talking earlier on this subject, and again, it comes back to generation as well. You had some interesting thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think something I'm sure Dave will back me up on. Things have changed so quickly, not only in our industry but in the IT industry as well. And so younger people coming in they're having their devices at home, and it's a lot more connected world. So they've had to adopt and collaborate a lot quicker than probably people of my age certainly have had to do in the past. So I think it's a healthy lean, and I don't see any more, certainly from 5, definitely 10 years ago, that there's so much pushback. So coming back to what Camilla said, collaboration between all departments is obviously successful to success.
Great. A quick one that came in earlier on today. Nice, simple one with some great tips from you guys, I hope. I'm installing devices in harsh weather environments. A, are they going to last? And B, how can I make them last that little bit longer? So who wants to just explain about, first of all, let's talk about IP ratings and how we can measure our products on that. And then, are they really going to last, or is an IP rating not worth the paper it's written on?
No, I think it's all about specification of the right product for the right application. That's what it comes down to. And it goes back to being a value-add distributor, where you're engaging right at the beginning of the project or the customer's needs to ensure that you're specifying. Understanding the application is really important, and what you're trying to achieve from that. And obviously there's always going to be a budgetary constraint on some of these things, but once we understand the actual need of the customer, we can design the product around it. And there is products widely available from all of the manufacturers now that will meet most harsh condition, whether it's ATEX, anti-corrosion, Nemerex coated but not full ATEX. So there's a variety of products available depending on that customer's needs and that budget. So I think it's really key on understanding what you're trying to achieve from that, and then we can design a suitable product around it. It is really as simple as that at the minute, in my belief. As long as you're having that open and honest conversation, you understand it, and meeting that expectation and we can do that with the right product.
And are there tips for the installer with regards to positioning, or how we're cabling, or how we're housing a product that can extend its life that much longer?
Yeah, again, it's about using the correct accessories, isn't it? Making sure that you are well versed in these installation types. So you're using the correct cabling. The containment is like stainless steel, galv, whatever that looks like for application. But doing your utmost to also follow through right from the product all the way through to the cabling.
And I think it's also just being aware and having a look at when you're installing it of what is the worst case scenario that could happen. Yeah. Pick the worst fiddler in the place and go, what if this person saw it and had it for an hour, what would they break on it? Making sure, as you say, with regards to the cabling routes, with regards to everything else, just keep in mind that you're dealing with people that might have some more time on their hands than you do when they're installing it to break it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is about we can reposition the camera and get the same effect. But a lot of the time, it isn't about that. The camera has to go where the camera has to go. And we have to accept that. And the customer has to be fully aware. And what the installer needs to be, in my opinion, more versed in is having that open conversation with their end user to set that expectation level.
Yeah.
And I think that's the gap we're missing as well.
Quick question that's come in. Are cloud-based systems the future of access control, CCTV and other security systems?
Obviously, with access control, the data packets are so much smaller. It's a lot easier to adopt with the infrastructure that we've got right now. I think there's certainly challenges with video over the smaller pipes that we have in this country. But undoubtedly, you can see more and more people asking about it because it's being driven by the consumer market, whether that's Microsoft 365 or iCloud, so everyone's much more familiar with the technology as a private individual. So I think it's sensible to keep one eye on it. Perhaps other countries that don't have the legacy that we have maybe a step or two steps in front, but I think we have to be mindful of our legacy installs and how we adopt that to go forward in the right way.
Camilla?
I think it's definitely the future. It's how far in the future it's going to be when you really get the adoption. I can remember back to the days of the analog CCTV when IP first came in. I can remember actually with Carl, we were talking about the VGA and it wasn't quite ready. And the VGA, it was a more expensive camera. Why would you want to buy that camera when they've got latency? And then eventually prices come down, technology gets better, the infrastructure gets better. So it's definitely the future. It's just we're not quite ready for it now. That said, there's a couple of manufacturers out there that are starting to make an impact. It tends to be the smaller sites with lots of sites where it works better than the big data packages. So yeah, it's one that's come in, but we're not quite ready. A bit like electric vehicles, we're not quite ready.
Could I add to that as well? There's a slightly different viewpoint on things as well, that some end users are more familiar with like an OPEX model. So with subscription charges and everything that we know that is prevalent in the end user model, us as consumers, that could drive things as well, where we go from on-premise to off-premise and everything that's connected with a subscription model. So again, that could drive it in a way that's perhaps out of control of the actual hardware.
I think our industry as well is quite new to it. So in the telephony industry, everything's going on the cloud because there's smaller data packages. It's how we change the mindset of our industry to work and how we can get manufacturers to make the actual cameras more efficient and the data, the bandwidth.
Yeah.
That's the difference. But we've definitely done mindset.
And upskilling the engineers and the sales.
Yeah.
Well, there's the element of training engineers as well, because not all of them understand the technology yet. And that's where we do come in and we get involved. I think that we're getting a lot of requests now, particularly with intercoms, can they be Teams connected? Because they're running cloud-based exchanges. And because most stuff that's in IP is usually SIP related, that there's a lot more of that now being requested. We've certainly seen inquiries for it increase.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us today. I've really enjoyed today. I could sit and talk to these guys all day. I think it's really interesting to bring everybody together in a round table and get those point of views. What's most interesting to me, I was going to bring a bother as to the first person who tried to sell a product in their answer, but no one did, which is fantastic. And I think that really comes back to the whole point of value add. We are there to have discussions, to talk about what's the best solution for you, what's the best technology for you, and that's what all of our distributors in the industry are doing now, and I think that's a fantastic thing. I want to say thank you to all of our panel members. We'll be posting this online as well. If you've got any questions to add, we can fire them over to our experts. Enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you very much.